as to be expected, every single offseason is filled with trade ideas, some from fans, some from outlets. And today, we got 3 trade targets from Bleacher Report that we're going to talk about and break down. We're going to get into all that plus more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. If you want to follow me right off the top, you can do so at CEO Haize. That's CEO Haize. If you want to follow the channel, you can do so at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform that we are on. But let's get into it. So, as comes every single offseason, there's trade targets. Some comes from you guys with your trade machine screenshot. Shout out to you guys on that. Some come from outlets and pundits like ESPN and things like that. And then we always have the ones from Bleacher Report, which they're good at for every couple of weeks coming out with a new trade scenario, free agent scenario, something like that. And they have 3 in what they're calling realistic trade targets for the Chicago Bulls in this offseason. And the first one they have on this list is Kyle Anderson. Now, this is a player that we have mentioned here prior before. I do think when you look at what his contract is at $9 million, he can, the Bulls can absolutely, try to, it'll take some maneuvering, right? It'll take some moving of some contracts, some combining other players. And while I do want to say in this, we really don't know what position AK has on some of these players, right? Is he more likely wanting to add to the team, which means they're probably just going to use the mid-level exception, the biannual exception, or is he going to be willing to move some of the contracts on this team to bring in some other talent? Now, with a contract like $9 million with Kyle Anderson, you're looking at maybe moving to Alex Caruso, maybe packaging Andre Drummond and Derrick Jones Jr. in a case like that, right? We don't really have a lot of contracts that you can look at moving. When you look at the fact that even if you do move Kobe White in a trade, right, which we'll talk about in some of these other deals, keep in mind, when a player's in restricted free agency, only half their base level compensation counts towards the trade. So, for example, if Kobe White was to sign a deal with the Chicago Bulls for about $9 million, let's be more realistic, about $14 million, only 7 of that will count towards salary matching with the other team if they do a sign and trade. So keep that in mind as we're talking through that, because the Bulls trade assets and values and things like that are kind of weird unless they're moving one of the big 3. But Kyle Anderson brings in a player that's just efficient in what he does. He does not do a lot, right? He doesn't do a lot of scoring. He's solid defensively, but not amazing. But he's smart, right? He's 6'9", 230 pounds. He came in the league as a point guard. He plays more than that now. He shot the ball really well, over 50% from the field he was, but he only scored 9.4 points per game, 5.3 rebounds, and 4.9 assists per game. Now, that's solid as a bench piece, right? Let me be clear, especially if you are moving Kobe White into the starting lineup, you bring in somebody like that, it's solid. You can have some things go through him. He's not passive like Pat, but he also he kind of just takes what the defense gives him. So again, this is a player that is cool. He's a smart defender, not by any stretch of the imagination a lockdown defender or anything like that, but he can guard a few positions on the court and can be pretty solid in them. Again, not necessarily the worst trade target for the Chicago Bulls in this list, and not one that I'm necessarily mad at. The next one up is Dorian Finney Smith, 6'7", 220 pounds. His contract, though, $14.3 million. So that's a little bit difficult for the Bulls to match. Right now they can. It's not the fact that it's just impossible for the Bulls to match a salary at that. It's just, are you going to be willing to give up the talent that you would have to give up to bring him to this team, right? That's the biggest question in this, right? We don't really know yet how AK is evaluating this talent. Now, they're not including Patrick Williams in a deal like this. I doubt they include Alex Caruso. Don't even know if the Nets would even be interested in that. So you're still looking at Kobe White, who's a free agent. You're looking at combining maybe Derrick Jones Jr. I don't even know. We don't have a lot of high-level salary, even if you throw in Marko Simonovic, but that doesn't get you anywhere close So you're looking at just by matching that salary, you're probably looking at either trying to factor in a sign and trade with Vooch or Kobe White, or moving Alex Caruso. And I just don't know if Dorian Finney-Smith is the level of player that they'll be willing to do that at. And Dorian Finney-Smith, another player that's solid in some areas, but again, he doesn't bring what Alex Caruso does, even at Alex Caruso being much shorter than him. You know, Dorian Finney-Smith, 8 points per game, 4.8 rebounds, 1.5 assists, a 39% shooting from the field. That's nothing amazing. Let me be clear here. That is nothing amazing. Now, he did play 66 games this season between Dallas and the Brooklyn Nets. He's a very solid defensive piece. I guarantee you the Dallas Mavericks wish they would have kept him in that Kyrie trade if possible, just to add some defense to that team. And of course, if you look at like, hey, Caruso doesn't give us much scoring. If we did include Caruso, at least we're getting a player that's more likely to be able to play the power forward and still be solid defensively there. He's not the passer, not good at deflections and forcing turnovers like Caruso. But again, you're looking at changing some things. Not really a threat to stretch the floor either. But again, if you're talking about replacing him with Caruso, last season he shot about, between the two teams, about 33%, taking about 4.5 3-pointers per game, which isn't bad, especially not as a big. It isn't bad. He can hit a wide open 3-point shot is basically what that means. So again, a realistic target, yes, in the sense that I can understand the fit, but getting there to making that deal happen, that may be a little bit more difficult for the Chicago Bulls. And this next one, this is the one where I'm willing. If it's Alex Caruso, you got to throw in Caruso and Derrick Jones Jr. You do it because it's a position of need, especially even if you do re-sign Kobe White, or even if you can work it out in a sign and trade, and that's Tyus Jones. Now, I'm very high on his brother. I love his brother. I love Trey Jones, and I would love the Bulls to be able to bring him in. But when you look at Tyus Jones, a younger player, 26 years old, kind of fits that timeline. His contract's $14 million, though. 10.3 points per game, 2.5 rebounds per game, 5.2 assists per game. I just like his ability to fit in with other high-level players. Again, a backup role himself in this season, but again, always finding a way to be effective. He's only 6 foot, 196 pounds, so there's some issues there. But you even saw when Ja was out how he stepped in and was able to keep that offense going. Now, they had other scorers that stepped up as well. He didn't take on the scoring load, but he is able to manage and run an offense. Tyus Jones is a smart player, much like his brother Trey, who knows how to just operate in the offense. He knows how to pick his spots. He's also going to shoot the ball pretty efficiently from 2-point range and from threes. Okay, 37%. He's a career 35% shooter from 3-point range. So again, not amazing or a knocked out shooter or anything like that, but he does enough well shooting wise, especially by the nature of some open shots. You can expect him to be more aggressive than what Ayo Dosunmu was at that point guard position, and maybe even just maybe it's Ayo Dosunmu sign and trade you can work out to try to bring in Tyus Jones here. Now, that would mean that we have to also include other pieces because they're not going to sign Ayo Dosunmu to a contract at that level. But again, that team already knows they're not bringing Dylan Brooks back, so they're going to probably be looking to do some other things. Could you entice them with a Derrick Jones Jr. to come in and do some things for them paired with some other players? Again, a solid, realistic trade from target from Bleacher Report. Just the finite details of how you get there to match that salary is the biggest question there. But hey, if the Bulls are motivated, if they have Tyus as their guy, they can find a way to do it. It just is. Now, those are the 3 trade targets that were presented, again, by Bleacher Report, realistic trade targets. And again, like I said, not necessarily the worst trade targets that I've seen. It's not. It's just, and even in this article, they didn't present the trade of how it would work. They kind of just presented the trade targets, which I always feel like is kind of a cop-out. That's why I added in salaries and things like that, because you can just say, hey, the Bulls should go out and trade that guy, right? That's easy. We do that every single day. It'd be nice for the Bulls to go out and get this guy, but it could prove a little bit more difficult than that when you actually get to matching salaries and looking at how the salaries of the Chicago Bulls break down. Now, another trade that was presented, this one actually did not come from Bleacher Report. This one came from Satya DeMardrew over on Pimp It Ain't Easy. And he presented this. The Bulls send out DeMar DeRozan to the Cleveland Cavaliers for Jared Allen and Isaac Okoro. And here's what I'm going to tell you on that. If the Cavs are stupid enough to do that deal, you do it and you run to the highway. because you just committed highway robbery. You committed if the Cleveland Cavaliers, who, didn't get as far in the playoffs as what they would have hoped for, they had a really great season. Maybe they do think, hey, we just need more scoring. But if they're willing to give up a young stud in Jared Allen for DeMar DeRozan, hey, you take that deal and you run. You've just committed highway robbery. Highway robbery, because you're bringing in a young forward, yes, with a high contract, but a younger player, a defensive anchor that you need, right? When we talk about this, also replaces Vooch. This also makes Vooch. You don't re-sign Vooch in a case like this. If you get Jared Allen in a deal for DeMar DeRozan, you don't worry about re-signing Nikola Vucevic. You allocate those assets to other places, and I even think that would make even a little bit better for Patrick Williams in that starting lineup if he does make his way back in there. But again, this is one of those deals that I looked at and said, you just didn't care about realism at all, huh? Like, I know that the Cleveland Cavaliers season ended disappointingly. I understand that they may be looking to continually add to their roster so they can keep getting as close as possible. But when you look at bringing in a defensive stud, and yes, Evan Mobley has absolutely continued to develop, and he looks like he's going to be great. But the Cleveland Cavaliers, as much as I hate to admit it, could have the best front court in the NBA when it's all said and done by keeping Mobley and Jared Allen together. Now, one could say as well, with the new CBA and how it's changed the salary cap structure and how much more hurtful it is to teams to really go over into the luxury tax, and you want to spend your money a little bit more smartly, maybe you could say or talk yourself into, well, maybe they don't want to spend that much money on bigs. But even then, I'm still saying you don't trade Jared Allen, a young player that still has so much left in the tank, for a DeMar DeRozan that only has 1 year left on his contract and is about to be 34 years old. But if you want to, we'll take him. We'll absolutely take him. If you want him, go ahead, man. Send us Jared Allen. But again, not a deal that I think is too realistic, if I'm just being honest there. But enough for me. Let me know what you guys think down below. I also want to hear some of your trade targets for the Chicago Bulls this offseason. If you're on the podcast side, I'll tell you how to get that into me here in a second. But make sure you guys sound off as well. Let's see what gets done. The newly extended Arturas Karnisovas has to get to work this offseason. Let's see how he gets to work. But if you want to follow the show, you can do so at Bull Central Pod on every social media platform. You can also send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. BullCentralPod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related because of you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can, y'all. It's about to be a dark off season, man. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.